Okay, I'm going to start. We've only got 7 today. Uh, I'll be taking the attendance probably in about half an hour's time. Uh, so you would have seen today, I put in a submission link for the group assessment, but the group assessment submission link is individual link. That means everybody has to submit, not as groups. Uh, which I mentioned last time. So the only difference is that it's not in the documents on the VLE, but I'll show you on the screen. Th- These are all the same, but when it comes to slide number 5, instead of this, I put in that one, which is basically individual student report template. Each and every one of you needs to create a Word document in this format and submit it. So for everybody in one group, uh, that will be the same, common to the group. Okay. Uh, this one and the business objectives of the group company, because that there are only five companies I've given. So any one of you will belong to one of those companies. So you put that in common, but then from here onwards, a student report section, you put your name and your index number and put your answers. And that's what you will submit. I've given time till next Wednesday. Right. This assignment has been with you for some time. It has been on my part to put in the submission link, but having listened to quite a few of you who contacted me directly that you would prefer to put in, prefer to submit individual assignment submission so that you get individual marks, which I would tend to agree. But you need to have the discussion collectively and decide what uh, key assets you're going to use. And then once you have selected the asset, then it's your business to look at the risk and the control. And the control, like I said in the previous notes, control can be common to multiple uh, risks and multiple assets. Okay. But the only thing that needs to be is that the assets need to be unique within one group. Okay, any questions? So put the link in. VLE submission date is midnight on Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday I put in. Wednesday or Thursday next week. I think it's 14th. When is 14th? 14th is Tuesday night. Yep. So Tuesday night is the submission date. Okay. So I'm just going to come out of the slide deck and go into the current lecture. So let me share my screen now. Okay, so I'm just doing a small recap uh, to last week when we did a bit of security incident handling. Uh, can you remember the sequence in security incident handling? I mentioned 7 stages of incident handling. Now that may be duplicated in the incident handling module that you're doing, but I mentioned 7 uh, distinct stages which are part of security incident handling. Can you remember what the first one was? Yeah, it's common to many activities that you do. what's the first thing you do for managing security incidents in a IT environment? What should you have done before the incident has already happened? Come on, let me ask somebody. Let's see.
Preparation
Sorry,
before preparation.
preparation. Exactly. You need to prepare for any incident. What are you going to do? Who's going to uh, who's going to call who? Who? Are users going to have some information in advance, or where do they get that information? Preparation is the key, because if you are prepared for an incident, you will be able to better manage the outcome of that security incident. Okay, you may not be able to influence the security incident because of your preparation, but definitely, if it happens, you will be in a better position to respond and take care of it. So, what's the next one? I'm not putting them on the screen yet. Just want to see whether you can remember. Prepare and what's
Identification.
detection? Yes, identification or detection. What's the next one? Thank you, Lakshmi. What's the next?
Containment.
Containment. Yes. So you prepare, then you identify or detect, then you contain, then
You have removed.
Investigation.
uh, yeah, before you remove it, you need to do a bit of analysis. What are you going to remove? How soon are you going to remove it? Where are you going to remove it from? So you need to do a bit of analysis. And then eradication or removal. After you eradicate or remove it, what do you do?
Recover,
Recover, and then
uh, lessons learned. Yeah,
yeah. So next one is the follow-up. Lessons learned and things like that will come after them. So that's the sequence: prepare, detect, contain, analyze, eradicate, uh, recover, and follow up. Okay. So if I go from the first one, if you prepare uh, properly, you will be able to detect an incident. And if you detect, you will be able to contain. Because if you can't detect it, what are you going to contain? You don't know what to contain. So if you contain an incident, you'll get some logs, some artifacts from that incident, which you can then start analyzing. Okay, so you need to have some ability of collecting some information. Containing means contain the incident as well as collect some information about the incident. Then you start analyzing. And while that is happening, you can start the process of eradicating that incident from your network or devices. And once you do that, there is a recovery stage. Recovery stage is not just reusing the devices that you had before, but inspecting them carefully and maybe even reformatting some of the devices to go back to a clean initial state before you do the follow-up. Okay, so you prepare, detect, contain, analyze, eradicate, recovery, and follow-up. So remember that. So triage is a initial stage as part of the detection where you look at the incident and actually identify, is there a security incident actually happening? How bad is the incident and what action is required? So first one is there a security incident, actual incident, or is it spurious noise? Is it noise that has triggered an alert? Because obviously you can't be visually looking at all of the packets on a network. A human can't be looking at the packets at the rate they come into a network. So you'll be using some sort of automated monitoring system, a monitor and alerting system. So in that, first thing to do is there a security incident? Because remember, as a response to certain security incidents, you may have to disconnect systems. You may have to reformat hard disks. You may have to temporarily paralyze the organization or the IT systems when you are doing a bit of analysis and eradication. So responding to a security incident is no small matter. It is one of the most stressful and complex activities that you will ever need to do as part of your professional life. So just to give you some background, you may or may not have heard there was a security incident called WannaCry a long time ago. I think there are a couple of books written about WannaCry as well. So there was a incident called WannaCry, is a Windows vulnerability, and there was a patch available, but not a lot of people had applied the patch some months previous. So there was a patch available, but the proof of concept only came to light maybe 4 or 5 months 4 or 5 months later than when the incident was originally discovered. So people, some people had applied the patches, but I don't think it was given as a high priority patch. The vulnerability level was not very high. So therefore, not a lot of people had done it. So in the organization I used to work at the time, there was a big panic to install that patch as soon as possible on all the systems. I'm talking about 12 years ago. So the software distribution and response systems were not as advanced as they are now. So it involved about 20 people uh, actually going from system to system, inserting a USB and making some changes. Obviously, USB drives were not allowed at that time. So it is a case of logging onto the system uh, with a special username, releasing the USB control, uh, downloading the patch, installing it, and then coming out. So there was some work involved, but it was a case of humans going from desk to desk, changing them. Okay. So that validation or verification is quite important in the triage. And it also informs you of how bad is the problem. Is it something that can wait till tomorrow? Or is it something where a response is required now? That's a call that the incident, the people who respond to the incident, first responders, will need to decide what action is required. And that's part of the triage state. In the containment, the primary concern is to limit damage due to incident, to limit the damage, not to stop it because it's already happened. You're now doing damage limitation, and containment is to limit the damage. Can somebody tell me on a IT network what capability or what design makes containment easy to implement? So I want to contain the incident when it happens on my network. So my question is, what is the technology or capability that I should consider at the time I design the network so that containment is easy.
Network segmentation.
Network segmentation. Thank you, Mudita. Okay. Network segmentation is a key control to ensure that containment uh, uh, is possible, and it can be done very quickly. Because if you don't segment your network, you'll probably have one flat network, and containment is basically shutting down that network. But if you have got multiple segments, and usually department-wise, flow-wise, unit-wise, whatever capability that you define it with. I mean, there are some uh, subnetting capabilities where you will do, where you will segment according to the service that the systems offer. So if it's finance systems on one subnet. Yeah. So you can do it. You can segment using different principles, but whatever you do, you should try and move away from flat networks, because not everything is equal. Not everything on the network is equal. And if you keep the similar things together, one, you can uh, do this segmentation segmentation control much better. And also your remediation, when you come to the remediation, it will be easy as well. So containment limits damage due to incident. Then you analyze the event and gather more evidence. So basically, analysis is it's the longest part of that exercise, where you analyze the event and gather more evidence. Now the evidence can come from logs, from files left behind by the malware or whatever activity that was done before. So all of those things are analyzed at that point. Then eradication by tracking the causes of the event. So there will probably be incident case raised against this incident. And at the end of the incident, you will look at, by tracking the causes of the incident, you eradicate, and then as part of, you don't raise a case there, you try and get rid of it as soon as possible. Then you recover and follow up, and in that section, you try and do some changes and make sure that the same incident does not happen again. So the whole idea is to prevent it from happening again. Okay, recover and follow up to ensure same incident does not happen again. Any questions? Students are still joining. Okay, good. Right. So this is the sort of flow, the key elements in the flow. And you will notice that the ones in green, it's not that they're good and the reds are bad, but the green ones you need to do at pace. You need to do very quickly. Sorry, the red ones you need to do very quickly. The detection, containment, remediation, and recovery and restoration are closely interlinked, and there is a urgency in those four reds. But in the green ones, you have a bit of time, and they are deliberately designed to make you think that if an incident has happened, how do I prevent it from happening again? How do I remediate? And how do I prepare the next time to do a better job? So for example, when you come here, the recovery and restoration, when you do the post-incident analysis and forensics, it might change your preparation for the next one. Okay, because you may want to change the control. You may adjust the control. So there may be settings that you want to change because of the lessons learned in this one. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for incident. And I'm now going to start on the security audit. So that's a very long section. I think it'll take a couple of days. Try and do as much as possible today. Just to let you know, it's very, very warm here in UK at the moment. It's, I think, about 38 degrees. And it's not very comfortable. So I'll try and do as much as possible. Okay, first question. What is a security audit? So this question is something that I've explained using one sentence. I don't know whether you have seen my explanation. If you've seen it, that's fine. Tell the others. Otherwise, I would like your own view on what is a security audit. I want your view. So if somebody says, if your manager comes and tells you, Mudita, can you prepare for a security audit next week? Okay. What do you think is going to happen?
We have to assess the institution's security readiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a security audit. So how do you assess the security readiness? Give me some examples.
We need to run vulnerability analysis.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. You can do a
And
vulnerability analysis. What else?
we have to take compliance with existing policies and laws and standards in place, and
Okay.
employees
Yes.
adhere to.
Yeah. So you're checking the behavior and the working against established policies and standards. Yeah, that's good. What else? There's a particular magic word that you didn't mention. There's something that we want to check in the audit. We are checking something, and what is it that we are checking? What are we checking? Anybody? Have a guess. That's fine. If you're wrong, it's fine.
The
Just want you to
policies,
have a check. Sorry?
the policies that the organization have.
Yes, you check the policies, but so there you are
uh,
checking the policies
compliance to the policies.
compliance to the policy. But yeah, so in checking the compliance to policies, how are you going to do it? So assume, Mudita, you're the auditor. So you go into Tarindu's organization and you're doing a security audit. So you ask Tarindu for the security policies. You have them in front of you. Maybe you print them, right? Now, how are you going to check whether Tarindu's organization has followed those policies they've already written? What are you going to check?
We will review all the systems that they are comply
Yes.
with those policies,
Yeah,
trying to
and
find
in
out
those
what are the
systems,
weaknesses.
yeah, in those systems, what are you checking, Lakshi?
Availability, that means that mentioned in the policies,
Uh-huh.
that those things are available in that systems or not, and what are the weaknesses in that systems, like that.
Yes, that's a particular word I'm still looking. There's a particular word I'm looking.
Certifications. What about
Certification.
the
Yeah,
certificate?
yeah, that's a good one. So when you put a certificate in place to a website, what is that? What is that doing? It is validating that site has been legitimately created. Yeah. So when I go to a site with a valid certificate, I can get some assurance that that site is a valid site. Okay. But what is that putting that certificate called? Go back to the risk assessments. Go back to the conversation about risk assessments. Once I do the risk assessments, what do I end up with? A set of? Come on. Somebody has the answer. Once I do the risk assessment and I find risks and I want to bring the risk of particular threats below the risk appetite, what do I put in place? I don't put a policy. I mean, yes, I can put a policy in place, but what is that putting a policy in place? What is that policy called? Is it administrative what? Come on, you've forgotten now. You've got it. But it's a control. All of these are security controls of different forms. I talked about technical controls, administrative controls. What was the other one? Admin, technical, and I forgot myself. But there are different types of controls.
Physical controls.
Sorry?
Physical controls.
Physical control. That's right. So physical, technical, and administrative controls. So administrative controls are things that you do, not necessarily something you can touch with your hands. Physical controls are things that you can touch with your hands, and technical controls are settings and values that you enter into systems to enforce policies and standards. Okay. So what you're going to check are the security controls. So security audit, I define as an independent verification of security controls based on an agreed plan, assessing the technology, people, and processes involved in the implementation and enforcement of such controls. So this, in a very short sentence, is the definition of a security audit. You're not checking the storage area. Okay. So you're not checking how big the system is, how tall the system is. Those are physical characteristics. You are checking security controls. And you are checking the security controls based on an agreed plan, which means that before the audit, we'll come to the details, but before the audit, you need to, the auditor will confirm with the auditee. So in the example I gave, Mudita, you are the auditor. You go into Tarindu's environment. Tarindu is the auditee. Yeah. So the person being audited. So you mutually agree the agreed plan, which is basically scope, what you're doing, when you're doing, when you deliver the answers, etc., and how you're going to deliver the answers. Then what do you assess? You assess the technology, people, and processes. Basically, everything where a control can be applied, involved in the implementation and enforcement of such controls. So when you are looking at a particular control, a particular setting on a computer system, you'll check both the value of the control that has been applied and the way, the process involved, the processes involved in setting up that value, maintaining that value, adjusting that value, and also removing that value when needed. So basically the lifetime of the control, you will be checking as part of the audit process. So go back to the front of the sentence, independent verification. That is key. Independent verification. That's the audit. So basically, if Mudita is doing, let's assume you're all in different organizations. So Mudita, you are in the auditing company. You go to Tharindu's environment. You do the audit. So you're doing an independent audit because you're not related to each other. You don't have any conflict of interest. You do an independent verification. If Tharindu is doing a check on his own security controls, can you call it audit? Is it an independent audit? Anyone?
Can we call it internal audit or something like that?
Yeah, no. Can you call it an independent audit? It's not an independent audit. Independent means there's no conflict of interest between the auditor and the auditee. I know where you're coming from. I'll come to that in a minute, Mudita, about the internal auditor. But the key thing about auditing is that the person auditing needs to be an independent entity doing the audit. Now you might immediately think, is recommending going to a huge auditing company like Accenture, Deloitte, PwC, etc. No. Any qualified auditor who has the certifications and who knows about IT systems and how they should be audited is fine. Just that if you're producing an audit report and you have independent entities doing the audit, then the audit itself will look very, it'll be look professional and good for for your stakeholders. So that's the first thing, independent verification of security controls. And who should do it? A qualified security auditor who are familiar with the technology systems being audited with no conflict of interest in the environment being audited. So I'm talking about a good independent audit of IT systems or security systems. You get some qualified security auditors who have been trained and certified to do those, who are familiar with the technology systems. So if you get a SAP is a ERM enterprise ERM. Is it a ERM system? Yeah, enterprise resource management system. SAP. If you get a SAP expert, he or she may be able to audit a SAP system because they are familiar with that technology. But you shouldn't get the SAP expert to audit your network because he or she may not know the intricacies of the your computer network, your routers, your switches, and all of the connections in between. They wouldn't know. So you can't get such a person to do your network. So qualified people, familiar with the technology, and no conflict of interest in the environment. And I know in UK, this conflict of interest is a very interesting subject, and it's even sort of explained and known at the corporate level, the company level. It is well known, and they will make sure that this conflict of interest is thoroughly observed. So if Mudita is going to audit Tharindu's environment, you should not have any connection with the customer's environment or the customer itself. No relatives, no in-laws, and all of those things are checked. For example, in UK, if you get auditors to come in, it's not that the audit company will not be suitable. The individual auditors may not be able to do the audit if there is a conflict of interest, but the company itself is fine. How often? So can somebody answer the question? How often do I need to do independent security audits? What's the duration between two audits? 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, 1 month? What do you think the correct answer is?
Based on the risk.
Good. Based on the risk. What else? Is there anything else that you would consider? Based on the risk is fine.
Based on the assets?
Based on the assets, but what of the assets? You mean the type of asset? Do you mean
Scope of the
audit?
risk.
Yeah. Are you thinking that you will do the audit often enough depending on the scope of the audit? What do you mean by scope, Gaurav?
If a new major changes happen in the
Okay.
environment, we can usually conduct annually, and if
Yes.
there are some change occurs in the systems, then and there we can do another audit.
Okay.
After,
So your decision is that we do it annually or when there is a major change within the environment. Good. It's a good answer. So my answer is as often as required by legislation and regulation, or as often as necessary to validate the security controls within the organization. So your one Mudita falls under the second category. That is as often as necessary to validate the security controls within the organization. So if there is a major change in the architecture of the IT systems, obviously you will need to go and validate again. You will need to validate the security controls again because the architecture has changed. So you can't depend on the old architecture if it changes significantly. And the first one is also key as often as required by legislation and regulation. So later on in the lecture notes, I will mention about the standards for PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. So in the PCI DSS, which is it's not legislation, it's regulation. There are certain criteria of re-auditing, rechecking that is defined within the PCI DSS. So you need to follow them. Okay? And if the law of the land, that's a legislation, dictate that certain audits may be done annual basis, other audits need to be done every 6 months. So there can be different values, but how often depends on the scope and what you need to do. Next, what should you audit? So you know what the security audit is. We have decided to get a qualified security auditor to do it. And how often we have established as part of the discovery phase, we have discovered how often we need to do it. But what should you audit? Who decides that and why? Who actually decides the scope of the audit? What should you audit? So think about legislation, regulation, and your own rules. Let's say your own security policy. Let's say there are three. There is legislation that connects to the court. Then there's regulation, which connects to like tribunals, etc. And then it's your own policies and standards. So what should you audit? There's a word. There's a particular word I'm looking for, like controls. There's a particular word. What should you audit? Where is it defined? I think somebody mentioned, I think it's Kaureswaran who mentioned that. How do I decide what to audit? Kaureswaran?
Based on the asset,
Say that again. Based on the risk assessment.
based on the assets, based on the
Yes, based on the
assets,
asset. Yeah, assets. And
which,
what do you
which
call a
is
collection of assets?
it's,
There's a particular word I'm looking for, starting with S. A particular set of assets that belong to. Yeah, couldn't hear that. Do you want to type it in the chat if you can? Okay, so basically, if I have a set of devices that are involved in our email delivery system, and if the independent audit is, it says independent audit of email systems, email infrastructure, then what do you call that set of devices that constitute the email system? Anybody else? I've mentioned this many times before. What is that collection of systems, services, and networks called? What is that
Infrastructure.
infrastructure? Yes, but I'm looking for a particular word starting with S. Something that I need to define. Okay, I'll show it to you. You should audit the systems and services within the agreed scope of the audit. Always, an audit should have a scope. Yeah, Gaureshan, thank you. You put that in before. Sorry, I didn't see that. Yeah, within the audit scope. In the case of enforced external audits, this can be what is defined within the external audit scope. Okay, and it's not necessarily agreed with the organization being audited. So sometimes due to legislation and some of the regulations as well, I'll come to one of them later on in the lectures. Sometimes there will be legislation or regulation which says certain scope of IT systems within your organization should be audited, I don't know, every year. Some may need to be audited every 6 months, depending on what the regulation or legislation says. So that's an external audit scope. And the organization where the systems are, they can't decide. They can't say, no, don't audit this, that is still being built or it's been repaired. No. If the regulation says all IT systems belonging to finance must be audited every year, then every year the auditors will come because it's a contracted duty. They will come and sit down and define the scope and start auditing. Now, if you leave out one device because it was being repaired, then you're failing your regulation. You're doing something which is against the regulation. Just remember, external auditors are very particular about what systems they audit, what results they get, how they're presented, all of those. And next one, how do you prepare for the audit? Okay, let me put that in here. You obtain the basic information of the organization, technology, and services that will be audited, and then you start engaging with staff who will assist in the audit. Because remember, because you want, I'm still talking about a external sort of regulatory audit. When you want to audit within an environment, You bring certain people who are specialists in the particular areas, but you don't have any knowledge about the architecture, how to log in, how to get the information, where the logs are served, etc. You are the auditors. So when you go into an organization, you need to engage with staff who will assist in the audit by logging onto systems, downloading access logs, any type of logs that you want to do your audit. Those logs need to be downloaded or extracted from these systems by somebody in the staff, somebody within the staff. Okay, so you prepare for the audit by obtaining basic information and then engaging with staff. So engaging with stakeholders. So the key thing here is you ensure scope of audit is agreed and communicated to all internal staff who may need to assist the audit team. So this is one of the fundamental mistakes that organizations do. They think, oh, I'm not saying the people who have organized the audit, but a lot of staff might feel that this audit is done to check on them, to check whether anything they have done is bad, is wrong. Okay, but that's not the case. So you need to communicate that information. Scope of audit is agreed and communicated to all internal staff who may need to assist them. And basically the instruction to them is given the written scope, any request for information from those systems must be provided to the auditors, because auditors can fail you if you fail to support them. Okay, so if you fail to support them, they can fail the audit. When you're engaging with stakeholders, agree on evidence format, communication channels, and deadlines. Evidence format. How does the auditor want that information to be shared? Is it a simple Google form sufficient? Or do you want it in Word format so that you can extract and use it in the report? How do you want to get it? Then the communication channels. How do you want to run this engagement between the auditors and the staff that manage the systems? Also deadlines. When do you need that evidence by? Obviously, if it's a planned audit, the internal staff would have had some prior notice of what's going to happen. The auditors are coming in, they'll be doing certain audits, they will be requesting certain system logs, system services from different parts of the scope. So when do they want it? Do they want it yesterday, or is there a particular time? And usually this is all part of the pre-arranged conversations you have with these auditors, where you sit down and work out what do you want to audit, which is basically given by you. And the reason I mentioned in the previous slide that some of the scope may not be changed by the customer, because those are regulatory and compulsory audits. Those ones, the scope, the company can't change. So you agree on the evidence format, then you arrange technical access to required systems. So sometimes the auditors will need access to specific systems for them to log in and check credentials, to check settings. Therefore, it is your duty as part of the audited organization to arrange technical access to required systems. Now, these can be, these are usually read-only accounts, but these can be special accounts that you set up only for the audit. And in one of the companies I used to work for, they had a system whereby they will have a set of, how do you call it? A set of generic accounts. Now, generic accounts are frowned upon by security professionals because there's no accountability. If you have audit user 1, audit user 2, then at a later time, in 2 years' time, how do you find out who audit user 1 was? Because that person has come and gone. So in general, it is not recommended to have generic usernames. But for this purpose, you could have a form of, some generic usernames which are given to named individuals during the audit. So if I have audit user 1 and Mudita's team is going to audit Tarindu's company, and I gave user 1 to Mudita. So on my record, internal record, the audit user 1 account was used from 1st of July to 21st of July by Mudita, and that is recorded. You can do that because they are only there for 3 weeks. You don't want to spend money on a new account. So use that account. Obviously, you need to check the access, make sure that the access is what is desired from the desired for the audit team. You don't give more access than is required. So you give just enough access, and that's how you arrange it. And also privileges. You arrange access to security documentation. So this is basically giving access to the policies and standards against which they're going to audit. Okay. So there's no point in giving just access to your IT systems. Let's say your web server. If the auditors can't look at the web server documentation and decide what control should be there. So you need to arrange that. That's usually a case of arranging those accounts to have access to certain parts of your, let's say your SharePoint area or your Google Drive, etc. Okay. By the way, the advantage of having generic user IDs, that user 1, user 2, etc., is that you can reuse them for other things like pen testing. Okay. So if you are an organization that do annual security audits by a audit company and regular pen testing by a third-party pen tester on projects and services on a regular basis, if that is happening within your organization, you can use those generic accounts for that purpose as well. It's a useful concept, and basically you need to have the systems in place to make sure that the current user or current owner of a particular account is recorded. That's the only way you're going to manage and control that. Okay. What else? Now you do your engagement and preparation for the audit. Next comes the field work. So normally in audit talk, field work is what they actually go and do at the auditee's premises. Okay. Now I know pen testing can be done remotely, vulnerability assessments can be done remotely, but for this conversation, let's limit our discussion to sort of technical systems, servers, routers, web services, etc. So there's a part of it is called the field work. This is what the auditors go and do. So obviously they'll go and, so now I'm talking in the sort of within the seat of a auditor. So they will go and check and confirm access, because if they can't, the first day is the best day to let the company know, the auditee know that access is not available. You check security policies and define controls. That one of the things that you will do as part of your audit. You will make sure there is sufficient audit documentation that will be produced, and you look at the policy standards, processes, procedures, and guidelines. So obviously, if the organization getting the audit done is suitably organized in terms of the documentation, these things should be there, ready to be consumed by the auditor in one location. So even if it's not there in one location to start with, for the purpose of the audit, you need to put them together. And the field work, the auditors will collect evidence of compliance, non-compliance. Now this can be in the form of logs, copies of logs. They won't move any logs. They will take only copies of logs. They will also be able to take screenshots. Okay, they will take screenshots of evidence of compliance and non-compliance. So can you see the two things, compliance as well as non-compliance? So that's what they have to do. They can't just take the compliance and say, you're past the audit. If you have not complied with, if your environment has not complied with particular policies and standards, then they have to highlight that. Document security violations, if any. So basically, especially one is the conformance and non-conformance, and the other one is security violations. And these could be compliant, but security violations. Any reportable incidents. So in most countries, I think including Sri Lanka, there is legislation in place where if an auditor goes into an environment and audits systems and they find, let's say, indecent images, illegal images, if they find something like that, they have a duty to report it externally. Okay, so earlier, I think many years ago in UK, it was voluntary reporting, but now it's mandatory reporting. Any reportable incidents from a legal point of view, it's not everything. From a legal point of view, certain things they have to immediately report. And sometimes they will report without asking the auditees organization. So basically, when you commission an audit and you invite an auditor to come and connect to your systems and look at your systems and point out all the problems, you're basically handing over the keys and saying, tell us where the locks are bad. Okay, here are the keys, here are the doors. When check, it's up to you to check whether the keys work, how they work, how soon they work, all of those details. Request reports and evidence to support internal compliance to policies and standards. So there may be certain things where during the time period that the auditors are on site, they will not be able to evidence certain matters. So if you are saying that over 90% users do something, then how do you prove it? How do you prove it that 90% do it? You do it by submitting reports and evidence to support your internal compliance. So the guys, the auditors, when they do the field work, that's something that they will have to request. So any audit that comes out will say I'll take the same example. Tarindu's organization is compliant with the 94% of the controls. 3% of the controls are somewhat compliant or medium compliant. Actually, there's no state called medium. Either you're compliant or non-compliant. It's a black and white. So another set. So 90 are fully compliant, and maybe 5 or 6 will be compliant with small changes. And then there may be a small amount where it will never become compliant. So it's up to the auditors to mention that and document that in the report. So usually when auditors come and do this work for a company, remember this is not I'm talking about not a forced audit. It's an audit where Tarindu has written to Mudita's company and requested them to come and do some checks, independent checks on Tarindu's environment. So that has been the request. So there is a draft audit findings will be sent to the organization, discussed with client team. So they normally do is they run you through the audit report and say, look, this is the scope you gave us. These are the systems within that scope we checked. And for every identifiable device, this is what we saw. Now, obviously, depending on how much you know the auditing organization and how much you have done work with them, there may be a template for that, for your organization. There may be a template for the draft report. The whole idea is that you get a draft finding first and then make changes after that. So sometimes in the draft findings, the auditors will say, look, guys, we did an audit. We found X number of errors. And they look like, there's non-compliant with the particular policy. So they might say, is there a newer version of the policy? There may be some additional evidence that has not been collected or people didn't know about at the time of the initial audit. So you can request them. Once the draft audit findings are presented to the organization, they'll go through them. Obviously, the auditor will go through them line by line and then produce a final audit findings and report. Okay. They will produce the final audit findings and then come and sit down with you and go through the audit report walkthrough with client. And this is usually a sort of a ceremonial thing, ceremonial activity, mainly because even though the IT department, somebody in the IT department may have requested this audit, when you're doing the walkthrough, you might have the CIO and the CFO and the CEO all present. So the whole idea is that you need to be ready. The auditors need to be ready to explain to lay people who don't know the technical details, and you need to be ready to walk through as a auditor. You need to be able to go through that full question and answer session as well. Follow-up activities. So what are the follow-up activities we talked about? What are the follow-up activities that can result from an audit? Response to audit findings. So remember, when you get a third party, one of these big companies coming and doing an audit, what they give you back is not called failures. They're called audit points. Okay, audit findings, audit points. So you may have, so Tarindu may have, I don't know, 20 audit points that they need to handle. Obviously, they need to handle as soon as possible, but sometimes due to other factors, you may have to do it, 1 month in the future. Provided you don't have high security vulnerabilities on your network, that may be possible, but you need to make sure that that response is given and you have the time to go through them. Consultancy to assist remediation. So many organizations carry out these audit activities. So these are external audit activities. Because internal audit activities, I tend to call them tests. These are tests, the pre-project test, the post-project test, all of those things. They're not necessarily audits because you are doing some homework on yourself. Okay, but when you are doing it externally with that responsibility comes to make sure that your follow-up activities, there's a response to audit findings, who is going to do it, and if you're going to get the consultancy to assist your remediation. So I've got a question for you now. I'll take the attendance in a minute after the question. So I've got a question for you. If I, how do you phrase it? If organization, okay, let's assume Mudita is going to audit Tarindu's network environment. So Mudita is a famous part of a famous auditing company, but they also do some security consultancy. Okay, nothing to stop them. They also do some security consultancy in looking at risk assessment, security controls, and helping organizations to do things better. So what Mudita says is, here's the report. Here's the report I produced. And by the way, I have this other friend who can help you implement this. Yeah, in the same company. So the auditing arm of whoever it is will come and do the audit, and they'll produce the report, maybe electronically or physically. They'll provide the report, and then when you look at that, there's some work, consultancy work that needs to be done, and the company can do it. Okay, now, in my opinion, that's not a very good idea. If not controlled, and if the organization doing the pen test are closely related to the people doing the actual implementation of changes, then we have a problem of trying to explain the separation of conflict of interest. Because one party is checking whether you are doing the right thing, and the other party is selling things to do it right. So there's a conflict. Recommendations and advice. So the last but not least, these auditing companies will leave you with detailed recommendations and advice. And usually they are based on, they'll have details on what went wrong, or what things need to be changed, and advice on how to avoid external auditors failing you in the future. I'm not saying that every audit becomes a failure, but it's something that you need to keep in mind. At this point, I got 14. I'm going to send the attendance sheet. Can you please put a note in the WhatsApp group for anybody who is not there to come and sign the attendance sheet, please? I'm going to take a 2-minute break. Please complete that. There should be one more. Yeah, good. That's done. 14. Oh, one more. Somebody just joined. If you have just joined, your attendance is being taken on the screen. Please go and say yes, yes, done. Good. Captured 50. Okay. Next one, internal audit. So somebody, I forget now, was it Mudita or somebody who mentioned about internal audit? Yeah, yeah, it doesn't matter too much, but there is a concept called internal audit. So all the things that I've talked about are external audit, where you get somebody who is not related or not, there's no conflict of interest in what you're doing, and you get that independent audit done. If there is any possibility, before you hand over your systems to external auditors, you need to do it yourself. So that's where the internal auditors come in. Self-check in preparation of external audit. It's a quick check. Check it yourself. What are the chances of it failing or not? External audit, independent verification of the fact. I gave it that before. Then as part of audit, there can be vulnerability scanning assessments as well. And one of the things that you would like to do is vulnerability scanning of assessments. You can do it periodically. So some system will do it on a periodic basis. So system checking of assets to determine if vulnerabilities exist within the systems check software. So vulnerability scanning and assessments are also done on a routine basis, but sometimes they are triggered by events. Something happens out there on the internet and people say, go on, quickly look whether all your P3 servers have got the latest patches updated. And then you quickly go and then you find the patches are not upgraded onto your system. So vulnerability scanning and assessments is another one. Then pen testing. I'm not going to do too much details in about pen testing. So what's the difference between pen testing and vulnerability scanning? Can anybody explain? Before I put the answer to what one pen testing is.
In pen testing, the testing entity actually try to exploit the vulnerability.
Okay. In vulnerability testing.
Only the detection is done, not the exploitation part.
Detection of what?
Of existence of vulnerabilities. Without exploitation.
Okay. You're right. Mudita, you're absolutely right. So there's a slight bit of clarification. The vulnerability scanning is a periodic check of assets to understand where known vulnerabilities exist. Okay, That's the key difference for me between that and pen testing is that vulnerability scanning, there are some signatures available out there, and it's available free of charge to anybody. If your vulnerability checking system looks at those tables and goes through all your systems one by one, making sure that every system has a particular patch available to counteract that vulnerability, then you're fine. But usually what happens is that vulnerability scanning, people find systems which are vulnerable to particular threats. And that's because the cycle of upgrade or whatever it is, that's different. Now in pen testing, as Dita mentioned, in pen testing is different. What you're trying to do is to try and actively circumvent the controls. It's basically, so you can think of the two as vulnerability scanning is somebody walking down your road where you live, walking down the road and checking every house from the outside. Okay, just checking from the outside. Is the door open? Are the windows closed? Is everything seem to be secure? Is the gate closed? So that's vulnerability scanning. But in pen testing, what you'll do is you'll go and check whether you can open the door. Because a closed door from the outside may not look very much different from a door which can be opened. Okay. So vulnerability scanning, you check whether the hole or gap or whatever it is there. Pen testing, you identify where the vulnerabilities are, and then you go and try and engage just to show that something can be done or not. So it's attempting to exploit known vulnerabilities and attack vectors. Attempting, not the attack itself. Okay, attempting to exploit. Now, just to be on the safe side, whenever I have commissioned testers to come and work for me, I take it a bit further. I said that not only should you be attempting to exploit known vulnerabilities and attack vectors, but two, you should be getting evidence of that. Okay, they need to maintain evidence of something being able to be penetrated. Okay, so that's the pen testing. Vulnerability scanning is different. So vulnerability scanning on a routine basis or ad hoc when something major happens, you do that, but otherwise it's a routine activity. But pen testing is different. It can be routine or just ad hoc when required. So remember, it's a good idea to keep the following in mind when dealing with auditing. Store the audit logs securely, because they, depending on what state you are in, they can expose vulnerabilities to outsiders. The right audit tools will keep the size of the logs under control. Some of the sort of free tools that are used by auditors, the one, they can't store some of the information. Two, when they come back, when auditors come back with the full analysis, you got a problem of transferring the data. The logs must be protected from any unauthorized changes in order to safeguard data. So in many environments these days, the controls put in place for logs is quite high. There's a big burden when you want to access logs. In this case, when you're doing audit, the audit logs must be protected from any unauthorized changes in order to safeguard data. Just remember, you've done an audit, save the information that's probably been sent to your parent organization already. Then you also need to maintain the logs to protect any unauthorized changes. You need to train the right people to review the data in the right manner. So when the auditors come back with the audit report and you have numbers right up to your neck, numbers representing this, that, and the other, then you need to have people to consume them and explain them in a right manner. They need to make sure the ability to delete logs is only available to administrators. Okay, and there's another associated point, which is you need to make sure that you have the minimum number of necessary administrators for your system. Just remember, when you get request external auditors to come and audit your environment, they'll be looking at all of these things and they'll be commenting on them. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Log should contain activities of all high privilege users. Okay, so that's another requirement. I can't remember, it's not the BA standards, but it's some other standards. It's sort of slowly crept in for the purpose of AI originally, but it's still stands. You need to make sure that only high privilege users are given these accounts. I'm going to stop after this slide. I'll start from here from next week. So this is basically, I wouldn't say a comprehensive, quite a long list of audit logs that may be collected and maintained. Okay, audit logs that may be collected and maintained for the purpose of audits. So I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm just going to point out something here. Number 3, logon attempts. So logon attempts, what you need to do is to capture both the successful logins and the unsuccessful logins, both. Okay, successful and unsuccessful logins. The logon IDs, these are things that you would capture by default. Date and time of each login attempt. So these are related to access controls. Now, if you look at these audit logs that I'm talking about and the names of them, you may immediately think about security controls as well. Okay, so think of it. The date and time of each logon attempt, you're going to capture and look at it, because you may be having a standard which says that unauthorized use on certain times you should not be logging on to certain systems. But that's something that they'll be looking at. Okay. Right. Since everybody's here, again, I think I'll briefly show that. So next Tuesday night, 14th night, you've got a group assignment delivery. Let me show it on the screen. Individual student report. So previously, what I mentioned before, I said your report must be like this, that a common report for every group with the student reports into sections. But I've changed it. You'll find a single, it's not a group, but an individual assignment upload link in the VLE, and you need to upload as part of your group. You complete items 1 and 2 as part of the group. So yes, you have the common group name, the company title, and the business objectives of the company. That's common, yeah, because it's not the individual interpretation of the business objectives. It's a collective interpretation of what is happening within the company and what the business objectives are. So you put that 1 and 2. 3 onwards is for the student. So each one has to uniquely identify 2 assets. Yeah. So that's asset 1 and asset 2. Then for each asset, you need to identify key risk and 3 controls. Okay. So 1 risk per asset. On the left hand side, you can see 2 assets. And for the asset 1, what's the key risk? That's KR1. And what are the 3 controls? Okay. And I've given roughly about 50 words. But please, I don't want a whole dump from ChatGPT, 25 pages as answer to this. Obviously, the same rules I mentioned in your individual assessment applies here. Use AI systems sensibly. Always check the output from AI systems once they come out. Learn how to use AI systems as tools for your education and not to replace you as part of your education, because it can't. Okay? Because what you and those who follow behind us don't want to end up is a world where AI systems are the only things doing anything. And I don't think that's environment we should be working towards. So use your logic, use your understanding, use your common sense, do all of those things, but obviously use AI systems for validation, verification, etc. Okay, so you can create your own answer and put it into AI and say, look, I think this is these controls are good to manage this particular risk within this company, which has a business objective like this. If you do that, it might give you some good advice on how to change your 50 words for the controls. In all of this, remember the thing on the right-hand side. So why are you doing this? You're completing this report to justify to the reader of this report. And the reader is the person who is going to approve the funding. So you're going to justify to the reader that the selected risks are important for the company and company objectives, and why funds and resources should be spent on the controls suggested in the report. Okay, so this is not same as your assignment 1, where you looked at a particular risk and wrote down the control. You need to tell me why that particular asset is important. Sorry, the selected risks. Assets are things that you will use. Obviously, if you're a pharmaceutical manufacturer, chemicals are part of your ingredients. Yeah. So having pure chemicals is a prerequisite. So things like that. So look at the company objectives and make sure that your risks are important for the company and to maintain the company objectives. And then you need to argue why I should be releasing funds and resources to spend on these controls suggested. Why are these controls unique or special or important to manage that particular risk? Understood? So there's the assignment itself may look short, but there's some thinking involved. You need to think and write. Okay. Any questions?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
So is the deadline end of the day Monday or end of the day
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday.
I think it's set up for end of the day Monday.
Okay, I'll change it. That's fine.
Okay.
I meant it to be 14. Maybe I've got that's fine. I will change it. Yeah, that's not a problem. I'll do that. Quickly. Yeah, I'll do that as soon as after this lecture.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So it'll be Tuesday, midnight. Okay. Any other questions? By the way, is there a holiday next week or the week after? The Poya Day? Is there any holiday next week? No, I don't think so. When is it? 29? Something is holiday, isn't it? No, that's in 3 weeks' time. That's fine. Okay. If there are no more questions, I'll conclude the lecture now. And let's meet again on Tuesday next week. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you and good night.
Good night, sir.
You say good night.
Night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.